I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Actually, welcome back to The Story. Our show took last week off, and I hope that you got some time to relax as well after a very interesting and often stressful and intense 2022. But we are back now, and we'll be here Monday through Friday live at 6 p.m. and on YouTube and our KGW Plus digital streaming app. Anytime you need us, go check us out there. We also have lots of great stories planned for 2023, and I'm really excited to bring them to you. Tonight, we're going to look back at some of our biggest stories from last year, from helping people cool off in the summer heat to Measure 110. We're also going into the vault to remember the soccer great Pele, who died last week. Back in the late 70s, Pele played his last competitive match ever right here in Portland. And we'll take a look at the failure of the mental health and criminal justice systems that allowed a Washington state man to get out of jail in Vancouver while he was waiting for a bed at the state psychiatric hospital. He is now charged with murdering the owners of a small motel in Idaho. But first, let's look back at last year. It's tonight's big story. We've compiled our list of top stories based on how much they were watched or read on our website, app, or digital platforms. First up, eviction threats from the Yamhill Housing Authority aimed at low-income tenants in Newburgh who dared to install their own window air conditioners during the heat of last summer.
I could get physically sick because you're so hot.
In this 100-degree weather, it's horrible.
These women live in Haworth Terrace, a low-rent public housing community run by the Yamhill County Housing Authority.
The Housing Authority argued the window units were a fire hazard. They told us they were trying to work with their tenants, but they had been notified by their federal agency that the window units just had to go. Other types of air conditioners were okay, but the tenants couldn't afford those. And you were not having it. You were quick to react. We got dozens and dozens and dozens of emails from you viewers offering to pay all or part of floor units for those renters. And Kim Stark actually went to Ankeny Hardware and paid for 3 air conditioners. 2 days after our story aired, they were delivered.
Thank you so much. You just have no idea how much this has impacted our community here. Thank you.
Attaway, Kim, and all of you for pitching in. Another story you clicked on and read a lot came from Time magazine. One of their writers named Portland among the world's greatest places in 2022. Now, that caught our attention and yours because, while a lot of us do love Portland, it's definitely going through some issues right now. And it's hard to imagine it as one of the best places in the world last year. But the writer praised the city's bike and pedestrian-friendly attitude, along with a couple of new small hotels and the expansion out at PDX. So, okay. In the early spring last year, we told you about the troubles small-town newspapers were having, and that in Southern Oregon, the entire reporting staff at the Herald and News in Klamath Falls had quit. That included the newspaper's editor and 3 reporters. Well, I checked in on the paper today. It is now putting out fresh stories. I think it has been for quite a while. And there on the right, you can see they are still trying to hire a reporter. Publisher Mark Doby told me today that they have restored the newsroom positions and remain committed to Klamath Falls as the largest local news gathering operation in the Klamath Basin. We also did several stories on Measure 110. That's the new Oregon law that decriminalizes user amounts of every hard drug you can think of and moved millions of dollars in marijuana tax money into programs to help drug users. I talked with the leader of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office who believes the measure helped the illegal drug trade flourish, especially in the metro area.
The fentanyl pills are counterfeit OxyContin pills. And by decriminalizing that, it's basically legitimized criminal organizations, and the drug possession, use, and sale is just rampant with very little consequences, and it's taken away our tools as police officers to sort of interdict that.
But hold on, said lots of others. They disagreed, including decriminalization advocates like Morgan Godvin there. She's a member of Oregon's Oversight Council for Measure 110.
The cartel does not care that we decriminalize drugs. It could be criminalized again tomorrow. They wouldn't care at all. The only thing that would upset them is if we emphasize safe supply or expanded medications for opioid use disorder, because that would cut into their bottom line.
Oregon's new law is modeled after Portugal, which decriminalized drugs back in 2001. So I talked with the country's leader of that program. What he described It is not what Oregon is doing. Portugal offers fast and free treatment for addicts through its universal health care. It also has consequences for those caught using drugs in public. Another story that attracted a lot of attention had to do with one house in southeast Portland. The owner left town and the house sat empty for a time. And then when he returned, squatters had moved in and they were not interested in moving out.
Had some guys they just basically walked into the property, took it over, and my seller doesn't have the resources to get them out.
The homeowner wouldn't talk with us on camera for fear of retaliation from those living on the property. But over the phone, he tells KGW when he asked them to leave, they beat him up, sending him to the hospital. He hasn't been back since, but still pays $1,500 a month for his mortgage.
I mean, all he wants to do is sell, and he can't do it.
Lots and lots and lots of you, over 100,000 people watched that story or read it online. In the meantime, since that story has aired, the owner has finally been able to sell. I've not been able to learn whether the new owner evicted the squatters. A lot of you are also interested in the race for governor. Oregon's race featured for the very first time in history 3 women trying to win the race. While it appeared for a time that Republican Christine Drazan might pull it off, Democrats kept the office that they've held now for 35 years in Oregon with the victory of Democrat Tina Kotek. She will be sworn in as Oregon's next governor next week. Another story with high interest from last year will be with us this year and the next year, and then it just goes on and on. It's tolling. Drivers will have to pay tolls on I-205 and I-5 maybe as early as late 2024, less than 2 years from now. Some county commissioners pushing back on that.
This is an effort to get folks off the road. For most people, that's just not possible. We have to be able to get to work and school.
Department of Transportation leaders say the tolls are needed to help ease traffic jams and that you'll pay less if you avoid rush hours.
Well, again, it depends on the time of day of travel. There's only 1 hour of the day that we're modeling where there be that higher rate. Other times there's a much lower rate. And again, if folks can travel at a different time of day or a different route or also, a different mode, like by transit, there could be options there.
So there's that. One of Oregon's most notorious murder cases also took another turn and definitely grabbed your interest. It's the case of Michael Franke, who ran Oregon's Department of Corrections. He was murdered, stabbed to death back in 1989. A man named Frank Gable was convicted of the crime and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 3 years ago, a federal judge ordered Gable set free because of problems with his original trial. The state of Oregon appealed that ruling, and last year, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals agreed that Gable should be set free. Willamette Week reported on December 20th, so just a couple of weeks ago, that the Oregon Attorney General's office is still not satisfied and has asked the U.S. Supreme Court for a review or reversal of that earlier decision. Stay tuned. This one apparently not over yet. We also covered mental health issues and the way those intersect with the criminal justice system. One of the stories that caught your interest was a unique one from a viewer. Melissa West, who watches this show, came forward to share her story publicly for the first time. In 2019, she was held hostage on Portland's West Burnside after going to a Thorns soccer match with her daughter. Suddenly, she was grabbed by a man in the midst of a mental health crisis who was running from police.
Everything slowed down. I remember just trying to lean over because all the guns were pointed at his head that was to my right, and so I kept trying to lean over, because they said they were going to shoot, and that's all. And I could see the knife, but I knew I couldn't. I knew I wasn't strong enough to overpower him, so I made the decision not to and to plead with him, telling him about my daughter. But you're scaring her. Please don't do this.
She slumped to the ground in an attempt to escape. He went down with her.
And the only thing he said was, they're going to shoot me. And then I said, well, yeah, you're holding. And then, it kind of made sense that he wasn't quite understanding. A normal person would respond, I think, to those emotional pleas.
You would think so. Eventually, he let her go and was arrested by police. Melissa said she was speaking out because she is still frustrated by the lack of change when it comes to helping and dealing with the mentally ill in Portland. She believes victims' rights should get more attention, and it should be easier to force the mentally ill to get help. Those were our most popular stories of last year. If you'd like to learn more about any of them, we have a best of 2022 story on KGW.com right now. And as always, if you have comments you want to make on any of those, or if you want to point out others you think that were overlooked, bring it on. We'd love your feedback. Or maybe there's a story you'd like us to cover now in 2023. Just let us know. The email address is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
Still ahead on The Story. Washington's state mental health hospital out of beds, defendants waiting in jail for months and sometimes being let out into the public as they wait.
I simply can't continue to hold him on the expectation that maybe someday they'll come pick him up.
In at least one case involving a Vancouver man, the decision to free him before he got treatment proved to be a murderous mistake.
It's insulting a little, the reality that this didn't have to happen.
What's being proposed to fix the problem? And an update on a new behavioral health facility being built near a school in Clark County. That's when The Story returns.
Here on The Story, we've been following the saga of overflowing state mental health hospitals in both Oregon and Washington. Simply put, the hospitals are full, and anyone who's ordered to get treatment there is waiting weeks, if not months, for a bed to open up. That includes people facing criminal charges. Judges have to weigh that person's constitutional right to a speedy trial with the potential danger they pose to the public or themselves. But because of the long wait times, some judges are now choosing to let those defendants out or dismissing the charges altogether. It recently happened in a case involving a Clark County man. And as Susanna Frame with our sister station in Seattle reports, that decision led to more charges, victims, and heartbreak.
It's a grief like we haven't experienced before. And that's what I felt in the whole community. It was, no, this can't be.
In October, the rural mountain town of New Meadows, Idaho, population 517, saw its first act of random violence anyone here can remember. A Vancouver, Washington man, John Cody Hart, allegedly shot and killed Rory and Sarah Meehan. It happened in the lobby of the historic Heartland Inn that they owned and operated.
So when I received the call Saturday, I was numb.
The town immediately gathered to mourn these pillars of the community, people they'd known for years.
They were all about people coming together for a common purpose.
Julie Good is the mayor of New Meadows.
How is it that he is free to come into our small, quiet, beautiful community and wreak havoc, not just with the family's life, but with our lives?
When the murders happened, John Cody Hart wasn't supposed to be here on the streets of rural Idaho. He was supposed to be at Western State Hospital in Pierce County, getting treatment ordered by a Washington state judge. Before Hart made it to Idaho, he was behind bars in Washington, one of about 850 defendants in the state waiting for court-ordered mental health treatment. The legal wait time to go from jail to Western State Hospital is 7 days. But right now, people are waiting longer than ever before, up to 9 months.
John Cody Hart present. If you are, state your date of birth.
September 2nd, 1994, Your Honor.
In Hart's case, he was in the Clark County Jail in Vancouver, charged with assault. Last year, unprovoked, he allegedly attacked an acquaintance. Court records show he strangled the man and tried to rip his eyes out. Deemed incompetent to stand trial, Hart waited 4 months behind bars for a bed at Western State until a judge got fed up.
I simply can't continue to hold him on the expectation that maybe someday they'll come pick him up.
The Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS, kept putting off Hart's admission date to the hospital. Judge Robert Lewis ruled his constitutional rights were being violated and released him in July to wait for a bed at Western State in the community.
I do this with some reluctance as the charges against Mr. Hart are very serious and his motion to release is granted.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good day.
3 months later, Rory and Sarah Meehan were dead.
It's insulting a little, the reality that this didn't have to happen. It's going to be difficult no matter what, but the way that it happened and the reason that it happened, it just adds a little bit more of a punch to the pain that we're already feeling.
I mean, that's horrible to hear. That's the first I'm hearing about that.
Doctors Thomas Kinlan and Brian Wablinger are senior DSHS officials.
Is that something that weighs heavily on you? Basically, I'm talking about public safety.
Of course. I mean, myself, the entire department, that is a huge concern as well. Again, want to try to get to these orders as quickly as possible.
DSHS says they can't keep up with current demands. Judges are ordering a record number of defendants get help at Western State Hospital.
So we're working as hard as we can. If we can't create extra beds or we can't create staff out of thin air, what can we do to make things work better?
This is a public safety crisis.
Rebecca Vasquez focuses on these cases for the King County Prosecutor's Office. She says the state's problem is this: poor planning and chronic underfunding, creating the worst chaos she's seen.
Our whole community is impacted by not taking care of people with serious behavioral health needs.
Records obtained by King 5 show that in King County, because of the long wait times, judges have dismissed charges including burglary, felony harassment, indecent exposure, hate crimes, and assault with a deadly weapon.
How would you characterize what you're seeing now? Immense crisis. And the system is years past its breaking point.
DSHS officials say the ultimate goal is to prevent people with mental illness from ever entering the criminal justice system in the first place, and they're working hard to figure that out.
Do you feel like there's hope to turn this around?
I would not be doing this job if I didn't think there was hope. We are thinking innovatively. What can we do differently?
Rory and Sarah were my friends.
Back in rural Idaho, a grief-stricken community has a message for leadership in the state of Washington.
Whatever they can do to make it so this doesn't happen again to another small community, whatever needs to happen, they need to find a way.
In Idaho, John Cody Hart is charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, and prosecutors there are seeking the death penalty now. Now, you may be wondering what state officials in Washington are doing about this crisis. We'll see if lawmakers come up with any solutions during their legislative session that begins a week from today. But otherwise, the name of the game right now seems to be create more bed space. And that includes a facility in Clark County where construction is set to begin in March or April of this year. It's called the Brockman Campus, and it's off Northeast 50th Avenue in the Mount Vista neighborhood. It's just east of Washington State University's Vancouver campus, and it's across the street from iTech Prep. That's a school in the Vancouver School District. The facility will include 3 16-bed buildings and will have beds for 48 residents who need behavioral or mental health services. Their treatment could last 90 to 180 days or even longer. Clark County already approved a conditional use permit for the campus, basically giving it the go-ahead. The facility will likely start accepting residents in the winter of 2024. Here's how it will work, by the way. Someone is arrested for a crime and considered to be dangerous to themselves or someone else, but a judge determines that the jail may not be the best option. Well, the judge would then drop the charges and civilly commit the person to a community-based setting like the Brockman Campus, where they can receive specialized treatment. Even though the project seems like a done deal, neighbors are pretty concerned about the proximity of the schools in the area, and they've wondered how secure that facility will really be. Last month, we talked with someone at Washington's Department of Social and Health Services to get answers.
This is not a corrections facility. This is a treatment facility. So the folks that are in here, you know, they may have come through the criminal court system at one time, but they wouldn't have any pending charges when they are at this facility. But nevertheless, it's a, you know, key controlled, all the, you know, security cameras, and no one will go unescorted anywhere in and out of the facility. You know, we have certain no climb fencing in our recreation areas.
We will keep an eye on this and update you as the facility comes along. But with hundreds of defendants waiting in jail right now across the state of Washington, 48 new beds in the winter of 2024 kind of feels like a drop in the bucket. But at this point, something's better than nothing. Still to come on the story, a special look back at one of the greatest soccer players to ever play the game, Pele. We're heading into the KGW Vault to show you his last ever competitive game, and it happened here in Portland. More footage and interviews that you don't want to miss. Coming up next. A public memorial is ongoing in Santos, Brazil tonight as thousands are lined up to pay their respects to the great Pele. It's being held at the stadium where his professional playing career began, and tomorrow a procession carrying his coffin will pass through the streets before he's buried in a private ceremony. Pele died last Thursday at the age of 82. He'd been dealing with colon cancer since 2021. Known around the world as one of the all-time greats of the beautiful game, he scored nearly 1,300 goals. And he's the only player ever to win 3 World Cup titles. Those wins came in 1958, 1962, and 1970. A superstar on the international pitch, in 1975, Pele accepted a $7 million contract to play with the New York Cosmos in the North American Soccer League. That's a league that included the Portland Timbers. And you know what that means. It's time for a trip to the KGW Vault. It turns out Pele's last competitive match of his legendary career happened right here in Portland at what was then known as Civic Stadium. This is video from that game, August 28, 1977. Known as Soccer Bowl 77, it was the championship match of the North American Soccer League with the Seattle Sounders taking on Pele's New York Cosmos. Pele was kept off the score sheet, but his team did win 2-1. The KGW crews were in the locker room after the game.
I think we try to win for each other. All the players, they are so happy because this was my last championship after 3 years here, and they said they want to win to me, but I try to win for them because they are so nice with me, and God listen what I ask, because God is so nice with me. Because after 22 years, all this year championship, World Cup, I got 3, and I finish now like champion.
What a poetic end to his career as a champion. As we mentioned, that game in Portland was his last competitive match. His final match was in October of that year as 75,000 fans packed Giant Stadium in New Jersey for Pele's farewell game. In that one, he actually played for both teams, the only pro squads he ever suited up for, Santos, his Brazilian team, and the New York Cosmos. By the way, he did score in that game, a free kick near the end of the first half. And even though his playing days were over, he still helped elevate the game of soccer in the U.S. for years to come. And that includes the following year in 1978. Pele was on hand as his former team, the Cosmos, took on the Portland Timbers in the semis of the North American Soccer League at Giant Stadium. It was a best-of-3 series with New York winning the first game at Civic Stadium 2 days prior. And when Pele is in the house, even if he wasn't playing, you just had to get an interview. And our crew caught up with him at halftime when New York was up 1-0.
I saw Portland 2 or 3 games. They play good. The game who Cosmo play in Portland 2 days ago, I am sincerely, believe me, I think Cosmo have a luck in that game because Portland have a many chance and they lost the game 1-0. But that happens in soccer. Sometimes in football, any game, sometimes who play good doesn't win the game.
Believe there's any chance for Portland to come back?
You know, every game, before the game finish, the both team have chance. But you know, as I share for Cosmos, I hope so. We didn't have any surprise here because Cosmo play very good until now, until the end of the season. That game is a tough game, but I hope Cosmo can win because we expect to play the final next Sunday.
It was win or go home for the Timbers, and go home they did, falling to New York 5-0 that night. And you heard that Pele expected his team to be playing in the final the following weekend. Not only did they play, they won their second straight championship, beating Tampa Bay Rowdies 3-1. But that time, Pele was in the stands instead of in the field. Nonetheless, here in Soccer City, USA, and around the globe, soccer or football fans lost an icon and a legend whose name will be remembered for generations to come. Just 2 syllables, forever tied to greatness and the beautiful game. Pele. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. See you tomorrow.